Hello? Is everyone seated, or do we have anybody outside still? I'm not going to respond. Safe. All right, well, thank you everyone for coming. This is, yeah. This is a really important issue that's been near and dear to some of our hearts, as it is, I'm sure, with yours. Um, Part of this is a fundraiser for a documentary. But more than a documentary, it's an issue, it's a cause, it's a fight, and it's something that the public needs to be aware of. Because not a lot of people, you turn on the news, you don't see anything about day laborers. You don't see anything about their struggles, and you don't hear the truths. You don't see anything about how Arpaio is a monster, or how SB 1070 is really racial profiling. You don't hear that, and that's what this documentary is for. And I'm sharing the stage with heroes, people working in the cause, not just here in the Bay Area, but we have Salvador Reza of Phoenix, Arizona. We have local people too. First, let me present myself. My name is Martin Rossetti. I'm the director of this documentary. And with me on the stage is the writer and other producer, Michael Machowski. With me to my right is Miguel Gavilan Molina of KPFA. To my left is Jose Ramirez. He's a day laborer of San Francisco. And we have Joel Aguilar of the San Francisco Day Labor Center. So what I want to do is we're going to talk about the issues going on both in San Francisco, in California, and nationwide. Day labor is immigration. We want to talk about that. And then we'll go into the screening of a work in progress. It's a 12-minute clip of what we filmed so far, and we'll get into that later. But most importantly, it's really about talking about the issues today. I don't know, I think we have mics here for people here, and then we have these mics here, which we can just take out too. We can go ahead and take that out. I think we should start with Salvador. He came a long way just to be here. And also, he's going to be talking about kind of the epicenter of this issue, which is in Arizona. It's a lot of states are watching, copying, seeing what's going to happen in Arizona. Florida has already come out with something similar. It's spreading, and we need to act fast. And so let's give it up to Salvador to talk about kind of what's happening right now in Phoenix. What are we experiencing with Sheriff Arpaio, with Jan Brewer, with Russell Pierce? Let's start with today with Russell Pierce. What was his news conference about?
Well, thank you for inviting me. Before I go on to Russell Pierce, I'd like to say that it was the jornaleros, the first ones to take on Sheriff Joe Arpaio when everybody was terrified of him, when everybody was afraid of him. They're still afraid of him, but the jornaleros took him on, and they told me, you know what? We don't care if they deport us, we don't care if they arrest us, but we have to have dignity. And they took him on over there at Pruitt's. And not only did they take him on, we basically made him back up, and we made him run from Pruitt's, and we've been chasing him around all over the place todavía. So, un aplauso para los jornaleros. Just to tell you about what the situation is right now, today at 1 o'clock, Russell Pierce came out and, and basically did what he has been doing for the last 2, 3 years, and that is introduce a measure or announce, not even introduce it, announce it for political purposes and because of the elections going on, where he's going to introduce a measure where anybody born, quote unquote, from an illegal alien mother and father will not be issued a birth certificate in Arizona, and it's part of the attempt to change the 14th Amendment to exclude todos los hijos de indocumentados from being given birth certificates or being a U.S. citizen. So he's already starting in Arizona. He's been trying it for the last 2, 3 years, but this time he has the support to do it. So that's the situation as it is today in Arizona. Just to give you an example, but also just to give you an example of what's going on. Today, the mothers of the children of the Manzanita school, a school where Arpaio was invited by the Block Watch, which are nothing but Minutemen and Tea Party people. They invited him to Manzanita grade school to announce that he was creating an armed posse detail of 150 armed posse to go and look for illegal aliens in the area of Phoenix. So when the moms went to talk to the principal to ask him why did you allow that to happen, the principal had one of those guys, the spokesperson for the Manzanita Block Watch, which is just a disguise for being a Minuteman, and he said, well, before we start, he's going to explain to you why they invited Sheriff Joe Arpaio. That time, the moms got up and walked out, and we're going to file a complaint against the principal, ask for his removal for violating Plyler versus Doe, which basically says that no individual, no entity, no power can interfere with the education of a child, regardless of their status. So that's the type of situation that's going on. But just to finish it off, because there's a lot of people talking, I would like to say that in Arizona we have the experiment, the lab in which they're experimenting everything that's going throughout the nation. You're beginning to feel it in San Francisco too, with secure communities, the 287G agreements. But it's also the place where we're experimenting the fight back, the resistance. And we have already created, since May up till today, 15 comités de defensa del barrio defense committees, in which anywhere between 20 to 60 families belong to each defense committee. And basically we're fighting back, not only for the big political things, but also for the school districts, also for the abusers, also for people that don't pay, the jornaleros. So we are defending ourselves. Since the state is not willing to defend us, we're going to defend ourselves in every way possible, and in a peaceful manner too, but in every way possible, so that we can create the resistance, we can create the conditions so that we can change the situation in which we are today. Because what's happening in Arizona is being spread out, and we're hoping that Comité de Defensa del Barrio spring up throughout the United States, wherever injustice starts coming up, so that we can have organized defense. Because it's not enough to get people out to a rally, it's not enough to get people out to a demonstration. We have gotten up to 100,000 people, over 100,000 people. You have to have the organized communities that can defend themselves and not be waiting for some savior to come and save him, like Jerry Brown or people like that in the last instance are nothing but politicians. Muchas gracias.
So, Miguel, we live in a bubble here in San Francisco. Where it's liberal, supposedly, but I think a lot of people are unaware about SB 1070 and the effects in Arizona here in San Francisco. But like Salvador said, we have it here. It's already reached us. We have secure communities. We have the 287G in the jails. What do we need to do here locally and to fight this?
I think we need to keep el pueblo, the people, informed. And in the indigenous Latino community, I think that we already know what the issues are. We either live in them or friends, familia, someone we know has to deal with the whole immigration situation. Pero I think what we need to do here in San Francisco is reach out beyond our communities. We need to reach out to the African American communities. We need to reach out to the progressive communities. You know, this is the new human rights, civil rights movement of our time. You know, all those people 40 years ago that were involved with the civil rights movement, they need to come out. They need to go, wait a second, what's happening here is going to eventually happen to everyone else that's not favorable to the government. Myself, working in media and radio, you know, we are dedicated, you know, to this movimiento. And I started in radio back in the 80s when the, you know, Nicaragua, El Salvador, the civil wars, all this was happening, but also the Simpson-Mazzoli bill was happening, you know, targeting immigrant communities. In the 90s, we saw, you know, Pete Wilson, you know, in 187, again, targeting immigrantes. We fought that back. Now in the 2000, the new millennium, the new age of, you know, consciousness y todo, we're back at it again. And I think that we who are involved with media need to constantly stay at it. CNN's not going to cover it. Newsweek, Time Magazine, mainstream media, no les importa. They want to keep, you know, America whitewashed. The whole pleito in Arizona, it all comes down to race. Who gets to be an American? And white America doesn't want it to be diluted, as they say. So nosotros en radio and television and media, you know, we constantly have to be on it, and we have been. Back in 2003, there was all this movimiento called the Freedom Riders, and I was part of that. We joined that group, and we traveled across the country, you know, telling people, get ready. You know, worse days are coming. We need to keep the pueblo organized and ready. Pero, you know, la vida sigue and everybody goes on. Things will change. They're not going to change. We saw Obama coming into the presidency talking about change and change. Pues qué cambio? You know, in his 2 years, it's only gotten worse for the inmigrante community. And I don't want to use inmigrante because a lot of us no somos inmigrantes. We didn't cross an ocean. We are migrantes. Mis padres fueron migrantes de Sonora y Michoacán. I came here cuando yo tenía 5 años, and I had my jefito taken from us when I was 6 years old by La Migra and the National Guard. And esos días in the early 60s, they were doing Operation Wetback. Can you believe that? Operation Wetback? Y todo el país aportó, you know, apoyó eso. Pues ahora, we have the same situation come back. Now we saw what happened in Arizona beginning to spread. Nosotros in media and all of us that are organizers, activists, we have to get on it and stay on it daily. Porque I'll tell you something, the Republicanos, Jerry Brown is in trouble. And he's not the answer. Democrats are in trouble across the country. The Republicans have been organizing day and night, down to the levels of PTA groups in every community. They're out-organized us, and it's going to change. El clima is only going to get worse. You know, in the next 4 or 5 years, we're going to see things that we thought were over in the 50s. They're coming back. So I think nosotros, we have to reach out of our communities. You know, cada uno de nosotros needs to go out and talk to the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants and the liberals. Where are the liberals? Where are the progressives? It's okay to say free Tibet, you know, free other countries, free other people. How about helping us free ourselves from terrorism of the INS? Free ourselves from the terrorism of ICE. These are groups that have been put together by the gobierno to hunt us down. I don't like having to drive through areas, siendo Mexicano Chicano, always fearing that I'm going to be pulled over. I've been pulled over. I have been taken in. You know, so, ¿qué va a pasar aquí? We all need to become organizers. You know, set up tree phones. One of the cosas que hacemos nosotros en radio, sometimes when we do remotos afuera, we take the radio out to the community. We have it open línea. So if there's a checkpoint, there's a blockade, the police are pulling people over, nos llaman. They give us a call y lo anunciamos. We announce it and tell people, get on your phones and tell everybody in your barrio, in your colonia, in your pueblo. We have to start preparing ourselves. It's not going to get better. Obama is not the hope. Jerry Brown is not the solution. We have to get the solution. And we're going to have to fight for this. Everything we've ever gained in this country has never been given to us. We got the fight of our lives in our hands. And not so much for ourselves, because we're the OGs. All for the young people, for the kids, the children. They're trying to deny people the right to citizenship in this country. And believe me, they have the power and they will have the votes to cause those changes. So get ready. Each one of you needs to become an organizer. Set up tree phones. Get outside of your comfort zone of your comunidad and reach out to the bigot neighbor across the street, to the guy that's a racist, you know, to the person that's, well, I don't know. We need to reach out to them. We got to get out of our comfort zone and reach out to the pueblos that are not part of our reality. We're going to need the whites to come in. We're going to need the African Americans to come in. We're going to need all those grupos, Arab Americans, all the groups that are outside mainstream. We need to bring them into this movimiento. Gracias.
So we've done research on this documentary for well over a year, and the things that we've learned are, it's scary. Let's go back into Arizona, and let's go into SB 1070. Mike, can you elaborate as to how that bill was brought up and how it actually was law? Did it come from Arizona?
Actually, no, it did not. This is a bill, and I'm sure if anything I miss, Salvador is our resident expert, but this is something that was written by a member of the group FAIR, which is the, federal, no, I'm blanking.
Fair immigration reform?
Fair immigration, American immigration. Basically, it's a eugenics movement. This is a group of people that believe in scientifically proving the superiority of white people over other races. And they are heavily funded and well-armed, and they are trying to demonize, well, they're successfully demonizing what they refer to as illegal immigrants. We prefer to call them undocumented because that's what they really are. They just don't have papers. Russell Pierce is the individual who actually introduced this bill into Arizona Congress, and it passed actually quite easily, which is really frightening. The stipulations of SB 1070, there are many, but kind of the key ones are if you are transporting an undocumented person in your car, you are considered a human trafficker, and it's a felony. It is now illegal for anyone to stop and pick up a day laborer in Arizona. It is illegal for families of mixed immigration status, which are a huge component of our communities. So a father who is undocumented and a wife who is, if she's traveling in the car with him, she's a human trafficker. What else am I forgetting about 1070? This is a really...
Is that not enough?
That's plenty, actually. It's a really, really phenomenal piece of legislation because it really doesn't have a leg to stand on constitutionally. But that will be decided here in November in San Francisco in the Ninth Circuit Court. On July 22nd, there was a partial injunction of the law, which really, and I think one of the biggest fallacies is the liberals feel that they won, and nothing has been won, actually. This is still happening. Sheriff Joe Arpaio has been arresting and deporting people for years without SB 1070, and now without a 287G agreement. Nothing is stopping him. He told us personally that nothing would stop him. Of the 115,000 people that have been deported from this country in the last 5 years, 14,600 of them came from Maricopa County alone. That's how much power this man has. And to the way right conservatives, he is a hero. He is protecting America, and what he's doing is destroying communities, he's separating families, he's destroying almost single-handedly the economy of Arizona, and he needs to be stopped.
José. Siendo un jornalero acá en San Francisco, obviamente no estamos en Arizona, pero igual se siente, bueno, no hay seguridad. Es un sanctuary city acá, pero igual no tenés la seguridad que te dicen, ¿no? What I'm saying is, we're in San Francisco, and we're not in Phoenix, we're not in Arizona, but still, you can't fool yourself. We don't have the security that you think you do. ¿Cómo es trabajando acá sabiendo que la policía tiene un poder que no tiene que tener?
Bueno. En realidad, yo siento, siempre he tenido en el pensamiento que ahorita como estamos en San Francisco es aproximadamente una copia de lo que está sucediendo en Arizona.
So first of all, I want to mention that the feeling that we have in San Francisco as day laborers is starting to mimic or starting to feel very much like we're closer to Arizona.
Porque primero nos anuncian aquí en San Francisco que quieren aprobar alguna ley que ellos mismos imponen y que ellos mismos anuncian, que se llama Sit-Lie.
So we heard that recently they're trying to pass a law here in San Francisco called Sit-Lie.
Y después también como para querernos todavía poner más a prueba, nos anuncian comunidades seguras.
And to top it off, we're also under secure communities.
Pero a mi modo de pensar, igualmente como está sucediendo en Arizona, los jornaleros de aquí de San Francisco también están con esa zozobra, con ese miedo de salir a conseguir el trabajo diario de cada día.
So what this brings to San Francisco, as is present in Arizona, is more and more day laborers are feeling some fear to go out and look for work.
Y la mayoría de nosotros los jornaleros coincidimos en que fue tal la libertad que tuvo el sheriff Arpaio, el poder manifestarse en contra, siempre en contra de las comunidades jornaleras, de las comunidades trabajadoras.
So we think this is going too far, that, for example, people like Joe Arpaio are going and targeting specific communities as immigrant communities and working day labor communities.
Y ahora también el gobierno de aquí, los congresistas de aquí también se ponen a la par de Arpaio porque están permitiendo o están concediendo beneficios para personas de Latinoamérica, como son los salvadoreños, como son los guatemaltecos. Al caminar por la misión se ve por ahí donde dicen que pueden pasar las personas del Salvador a renovar su TPS y que se autorizaron y que se han aprobado algunos beneficios para las comunidades de Guatemala.
So quite ironically, at the same time, the government is giving certain privileges to, for example, the Guatemalan community, the Salvadoran community with TPS, which is for people fleeing war or some extreme circumstance.
Y esto es únicamente, es un ardid, es algo muy planeado, es algo muy elaborado para que todas las comunidades jornaleras se separen, para que todas se dividan para que no tengan la unidad que se requiere en estos momentos para poder exigir los derechos, porque muchas de las personas que estamos aquí y muchas de las personas que tuvimos familiares aquí fueron los que han edificado este país.
So it seems almost deliberate that this is causing frictures among the workers from different nationalities in Latin America. And instead of joining together for the common fight, it causes more problems. And a lot of us have, a lot of family to take care of.
Y entonces, cuando yo estoy en el Day Labor Program, siempre que tengo oportunidad, intento, ¿verdad? Trato de despertarles a los demás compañeros ese gesto cívico, ese amor por la lucha para poder alcanzar lo que vinimos a buscar aquí, ¿verdad? Un sueño americano que no es imposible y que tenemos que conseguirlo a base de esfuerzo y de lucha y de buen comportamiento, pero sobre todo de unidad.
So whenever I'm talking to day laborers and in the day labor program, I talk to them and I tell them that it's not impossible to reach the American dream, but it's not going to be easy. It requires a lot of dedication. It requires a lot of hard work.
Que no tenemos que caer en los juegos de palabras de los gobiernos, que no tenemos que dejarnos arrastrar por la ola que ellos mismos forman, sino que nosotros tenemos que buscar la unidad y tenemos que comenzar a combatir esos males como está ahorita manifestándose en Arizona del sheriff Arpaio.
So stressing always that if we're going to gain anything, it's going to be through our involvement, our struggling, in fighting unfair practices like what Joe Arpaio is doing in Arizona.
Y les vuelvo a decir, les vuelvo a recomendar que solamente preparándonos, solamente estudiando, solamente dedicándonos a lo que vinimos, lo que es hacer un trabajo honrado, con respeto para los empleadores, es como lo vamos a lograr. Gracias.
So as a day laborer, I know that the way that we're going to excel is going to be through our hard work, through our dedication, through our respect, especially to our employers, and we're going to be able to succeed. Thank you.
So what we're going to do is show the clip, and then we're going to go back on to sit down here and talk more. Joel is going to talk about the San Francisco Day Labor Program, what they're doing here, and what are the goals for this election and what have you. If we can, we'll move the chairs, and then we'll show the clip for 12 minutes. We'll be back for a Q&A. So you guys stay right there. You're fine. And then we'll get going.
If you look at the history of how immigrant workers have been kind of invited to come work in the United States, and the other side of the cycle kind of exiled or pushed out or deported, you see that cycle going on through history. We invited people to come work in the United States when we needed their labor, and then when there was an abundance of labor, you kind of exile, you deport.
Day laborers and undocumented workers in general are not stealing jobs from anyone in this country. Instead of blaming day laborers for taking jobs and scapegoating them and denying them access to basic rights and services, we should be instead apologizing to them because economic global policies such as free trade agreements like NAFTA and CAFTA cause them to be displaced and have to leave their loved ones and their families to come here to work low-paying, exploitative jobs. We should thank them for the work that they do in this country.
Cuando llegamos, no venimos sabiendo de trabajos de oficina, no venimos sabiendo trabajos profesional netamente, sino venimos a hacer trabajos manuales, laborales, ¿no? Muy importantes, porque se necesita, para construir un edificio necesitas el ingeniero, el arquitecto, el diseñador, pero luego necesitas la mano de obra. Ahí es donde la parte inmigrante entra.
About 10% of our work
to keep an entire community of workers who are here, and we depend on them. We've never said that we don't want them.
And it's become politically acceptable to scapegoat immigrants and communities of color.
Arizona has historically shown its racist tendencies. Historically, it's shown racism and discrimination against the indigenous communities, Latino communities, migrant communities, particularly undocumented. And so what's happening now in Arizona basically is a part of that history. I think what's frightening about Arizona is not that it's new or unique, because what is happening in Arizona is happening everywhere. But I think what's frightening is that it was codified. It was institutionalized in the form of a
Mentality that I call it, where you reinforce the borders because you feel that you're being
illegal in my mind, but it's also very sensational. And the media loves things that are going to grab people's attention.
Suffering the same fate. This is a civil and a human right violation, and this should never occur. But this is exactly what's been happening in Arizona, and we need to stop it.
I'm an equal opportunity incarcerator. Well, he was violating some policies from his last arrest yesterday. He wanted to be arrested yesterday, and today he was not following everything that he should been, and I'm not going to talk about that. Let's see what the courts say.
Are there any issues, sir, with probable cause?
Under our review, I did not see that this rose to the level of probable cause.
I I think it's going to be hard. It's going to be a long time before they break me.
You regard this as total retaliation?
What else can you call it?
Local law enforcement makes it illegal for employers to stop their vehicles to pick up day laborers to go to work.
Pues que esa ley nos vino a acabar de trastornar. Económico. La gente está asustada, ya no entra por gente aquí.
A mí me ha afectado en la forma de que los mismos patrones, los misma gente de aquí,
al gringo, al que tiene papel, aunque no le haga el trabajo.
The Department of Homeland Security has recently instituted a program they call Secure Communities. We don't find anything secure about it, so we call it by its real name, which is ESCOM. What ESCOM does, county by county, state by state, they're implementing it, is that it causes people who are arrested and fingerprinted, those fingerprints are automatically and immediately sent over to ICE or immigration. People who are being arrested with very minor charges or with no charges, people who are not criminals at all, they're brought into the station, they give their fingerprints, and ultimately they are deported.
Everybody arrested, everybody. We investigate, see if they're here illegally.
Y esto también nos tiene un poco asustado a la mayor parte de los inmigrantes. La policía te detenga, te pida documentación y si alguien tiene problema con migración, tiene ticket, ha sido detenido, pues ellos son retenidos y deportados. Yo creo que es la forma de facilitar a la darle la facilidad a la policía para que haya mayor control de los inmigrantes aquí en la ciudad.
Latinos are being cast as a threat, and this narrative is really all over the media. And a lot of the threat comes from this idea that Latinos is equated to undocumented workers. You know, that's counterfactual. More than 60-something% of Latinos are documented.
At one time they used to call us wetbacks, greasers, spigs. Now they used a legal word and codified it into law and call us illegal aliens.
Here in 2010, we have reached a point where our immigration policy is in crisis. We have a huge undocumented workforce. We have many businesses and families that rely on that undocumented workforce, and we don't have a way of making it right.
These anti-immigration bills have actually destroyed the economy of Arizona. So people are leaving not so much because they fear the law, because they don't have a job. So it's not only affecting day laborers, it's affecting the whole community.
Unless things don't change, we have a weakened labor movement and our economy would suffer. if things don't change, because undocumented workers being susceptible to deportation constantly makes the economy, employers, and businesses feeling very insecure. So we pass a broad legalization law that allows people, the millions of people who are here under an undocumented status, to be able to gain their residency. And we provide a reasonable way for people who are yet to come to be able to apply for their residency. Because if we don't do that, then we're going to find ourselves in the same situation come a few years from now.
And we really have to focus on creating development and jobs in the sending countries. And that is a very large part of an ethical border policy.
I think that there's something tremendously ironic about those that invoke nationalism or patriotism in efforts to criminalize immigrants, because it's the very immigrants that are being criminalized that are living up to this country's highest ideals.
Mike, sir. There we go. Hey, Mike, why don't you come down? For those of you leaving, we have donation forms outside. We ask for your support. We're going to do a quick donation pitch, and then for those of you who are still want to stay here and chat with us, we're going to bring back the panel and talk about the documentary and back to the issue. But Mike, the producer and writer, has a few words.
First of all, I'd like to thank you all so much for coming out tonight. Martine and I and the Vivo group have been working on this film for about almost a year and a half now. And in doing it, you start to feel very lonely. We get into a little bubble of just working together, and it's really nice to have your support and to see you out here tonight. It makes us feel very good about the work we're doing. So thank you. One of the things that Salvador Reza said after he was released the second time that he was arrested, 2 days in a row, was that if this can happen to me, this can happen to anyone. And that's one of the things that is stuck in my mind throughout the process of making this film, is that this is not a Latino issue, this is not an immigration issue, this is an issue of justice, and this is an issue that affects our entire country, and really it spans way beyond that. It affects the entire world. So we're here to reach out to you because we need you. We need your support. This film has to be made. As we've already said, not a lot of people know about this. You really have to go out and actively seek this information out. And we want to get this out to the community. We want to get this out to the world. And we need your support. So our volunteers right now are going to pass out donation forms. You can, look into your heart, and my favorite line, and look into your wallet. No donation is too small, and believe me, no donation is too large. I'm going to say probably around $2-3 million, complete tax deductible. We also, if you don't want to pay cash or check, we have laptops set out in the lobby. There's a link to our site there. You can do a credit card donation, and you can also donate from home by using a credit card, and all of the information is on the form you're being handed right now. So again, I'd like to thank you so much. It is so wonderful to have you here tonight, and from the bottom of our hearts, thank you.
Well, I wanted to say thank you also to those who worked behind the scenes. We had food prepared by my girlfriend, Apple. wine donated by Carl Yeager. The aid and support of family and friends who have helped us throughout this entire production, from giving us a place to sleep in Phoenix to helping us get a flight back from Phoenix. So we'd like to thank everyone. But if any of you guys are still interested, I'd like to invite Joel, Salvador, Miguel had to leave. Unfortunately, Renee also was sick, and so she was not able to come. She was in the documentary as well. She's the attorney that represents, one of the attorneys that represent La Raza Centro Legal. If you have any questions, we're gonna do a little Q&A, but we're gonna start it off with Joel talking about our day labor center here in this city, the San Francisco Day Labor Center.
So I want to start off first by also noting that there was, I'm not sure if they're still here, but people from Mountain View, from their center, and people from Grayton that drove all the way from over there to be here. And first of all, how many of you guys are voters? Raise your hand. Wow, that's a lot. So how many of you guys have, and gals have already voted? Raise your hand. Mail-in ballots? Nobody? Okay, perfect. Because one thing that you could do, as Jose, one of our members of the day laborers, is vote no on Prop Al. And does anybody know what Prop Al is? And this is related to day laborers and the work that the day laborers, like Jose, have been doing for the past couple months and will be doing until election time. But is anybody here familiar with Prop Al? No? Sitlai, what, can you tell us what Sitlai is? Exactly. So just in case somebody didn't hear, it makes it illegal to sit or lie on public sidewalks from the times of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And for day laborers, the sidewalks are their workplace. For day laborers, the sidewalk is where, for almost 40 hours a day, they're standing to try to get picked up for work. It doesn't make sense for a day laborer not to sit down at one point, and that would be a criminal act. Sitting down to eat some lunch would be a criminal act. Sitting down to rest would be a criminal act, and it could lead up to $50 to $300 to 30 days in jail for the third time that they're caught doing something illegal, which is sitting or lying on a public sidewalk, right? So this is something that the day laborers know is going to affect them. And if you think about what's happening in Arizona and the connections, so Sit-Lie here in San Francisco, teaming together, plus secure communities, right, which makes it anybody that is apprehended by the police, their fingerprints are going to get sent to ICE. What happens? What happens is that we have another Arizona here in San Francisco, another Arizona that doesn't, for many of us here as residents, haven't even heard of Selai because it doesn't sound that alarming. But if we put the pieces together, we're seeing that somebody could potentially, a day labor that's sitting, trying to get work and they're sitting down to try to send money home to their family and to their kids, is going to end up deported the next day. And it has happened. And as people in the film mentioned and people in the panel mentioned, since its inception, Secure Communities since 2008, October 2008 to June 2010, over 64,000 people through this program have been deported. And the majority of which, so the excuse is, you know what, you're a criminal. And that's why you're deported and we're going to make everybody safer. That's the excuse. But in reality, 70% of the people getting deported are not even criminal and are not even dangerous. So the day laborers in San Francisco, they're fighting against this. And asked for everyone in this room that votes and that does have an electoral voice is to vote against Prop Al. That's something really easy, one step that you could do, and one of many take-home messages, because the day laborers are not only being vocal about it, they're going out and walking to the streets of the neighbors here in the Mission. Day laborers taking their Saturday morning where they could be working and stepping into the streets to knock on people's door to tell them vote no on Sid Lai, vote no on Prop Al. Because they know even though they may not have an electoral voice, they do have a voice in which they could use for people that can actually vote. So the day laborers here in San Francisco, you may have seen them in Cesar Chavez, you may have seen them in Divisadero, in front of the U-Haul, and you may have, of course, heard all the negative media on TV about how criminal they are. But I think that's why this types of independent media is really important, because they give the space, and I'm not going to go on forever, I'm sorry, but they give the space to tell the true story and to hear from real day laborers about what's going on. So we have a program here in Cesar Chavez Mission. We refer jobs to the workers. We have flyers on the back that you can, if you need someone, a mover, a gardener, you could hire them. We have flyers on the back, and Hannah, who's there, who's going to raise her hand right now, has extra flyers that she could give you. We have easy online way to hire. You just click a button, fill out a form. You'll get a day laborer at the time and day you specify. So there's my pitch to hire day laborers as well. Thank you.
I'm going to actually give the mic back to you because I want people to hear about the San Francisco Day Labor Center. And let me just give you a quick intro. We've been researching day labor centers all over the country, and every single one is different, from how the day laborers are hired to protections. And one thing that has blown my mind is the amount of legal representation that day laborers have here in San Francisco through the San Francisco Day Labor Program, which is affiliated with the Raza Centro Legal, which Renee Saucedo is affiliated with. So let's quickly go into the SF Day Labor Program about that, if Joel can do that.
Sure. So, real alarming fact, there was a study, national study done in 2007 by a UCLA professor, Valenzuela, that found that when the study was done in that year, in the past 2 months, about half of the day laborers had their wages stolen. So, you know, that means that they performed their service, but didn't get any money back. And a lot of times, we're not just talking about a few $100s, we're talking about a few $1,000s that basically is their bread. So one of the things that we know it's really important is for day laborers to have access to legal representation, which is free, because of course they don't have money to pay for it. So we provide La Raza Centro Legal, free lawyers, and even free community members that could help represent them in cases of wage claims.
Cool. So Jose is going to talk a little bit about his reactions to Sit Live, because we can talk all day about it, but it affects Jose more than anybody else here. And then we're going to open it up to Q&A. So.
Bueno, cuando a nosotros nos avisaron o nos llegamos a enterar de que se había implementado, se había propuesto por medio de la policía se había hecho una propuesta de pasar lo que ya estaba como ordenanza y ponerlo como una ley, y ellos le iban a poner por nombre Sit Lai. A nosotros nos cayó algo así como una cubeta de agua fría en la espalda.
So at the moment that we heard that they were going to propose a law that would criminalize sitting in line in sidewalks, for us it was like cold water being poured.
Se trataba de penalizar a todas las personas que estaban intentando conseguir trabajo, que estaban de pie. iban a penalizarlas, iban a castigarlas, iban a ponerlas hasta presas si se sentaban o si se recostaban en la banqueta. Entonces hubo muchísimas acciones, hubo muchas reuniones con los congresistas, con los supervisores, y ellos tenían de su parte, la policía tenía de su parte a todos los comerciantes.
So we immediately started mobilizing and talking to our elected officials, talking to different heads of different city departments. And what we were finding out that this was something being not only pushed by the police, but also heavily funded by the Chamber of Commerce.
Y la policía, su argumento que nos daba, que daba para querer hacer esta propuesta, volverla como una ley, era de que este lugar es un lugar 100% turístico y que las personas acostadas en la banqueta o sentadas quedaban mal aspecto.
And so the reasoning or the excuse that we got from them is that we were, or workers or people standing in front of businesses were giving a bad image or a bad aspect to San Francisco.
Y decían que su principal objetivo, según los comerciantes y la policía, era la calle Hyde o Haight, la calle de los hippies.
So they're saying that the main target, that the reason they were doing this was because of Haight Street and what was going on there, where the streets of where the hippies usually stand or sit.
Pero lo que también decía la policía es que se veían ellos como algo detenidos en sus funciones, porque aunque vieran algún delito perpetuándose en ese momento, no podían actuar porque tenía que haber alguna denuncia para cualquier persona, para cualquier ilícito que se estuviera realizando. Y ellos lo que querían también involucrar en esa ley del CID-LAI era que querían libertad para actuar cuando ellos vieran cualquier cosa que estuviera fuera de la ley, tuvieran la libertad de actuar en el momento ellos sin ninguna denuncia.
So one of the things that the police wanted was to be able to start proceedings on someone, or finding someone or ticketing someone, even without someone being witness to quote unquote a crime. So they're using that excuse.
Pero afortunadamente me tocó a mí ir a varias acciones también, pero vi en ese lugar también congregados, así como ahorita estamos, a bastantes grupos que estaban en desacuerdo con esas situaciones, y todos llevaban personas bien interesadas, personas que conocían mucho de los problemas de las comunidades, y que estábamos todos en contra de la policía y de ese grupo de comerciantes que querían implementar esto como una ley.
So we were able to organize and talk to elected officials and work with allies, people that were opposed to this, to defeat it in the board level.
Ahorita todo eso está congelado, y no se ha terminado, pero supuestamente todavía lo iban a implementar en las votaciones de noviembre, entonces todavía estamos pendientes de eso.
So this is still an issue because even though it was defeated in the board, it's going to be in the ballots. So we have to defeat it there.
All right, we're a little short on time. We have a little bit for questions on the issues or on the documentary.
I had a question about which groups in Arizona, particularly church groups, churches, synagogues, mosques, as well as trade unions and community groups, what's been their stand on SB 1070, and have any of them become active in the fight against SB 1070? In other words, I'm raising the idea of what kind of coalitions are possible in Arizona to build a movement against SB 10 and 1070 rather. And then also the same question really for Prop L. What have been the groups in San Francisco who have opposed it?
On the Arizona part, there has been on SB 1070 a lot of coalitions have come out. When we mobilized, we had about over 100,000 people actually marched. And for the first time, the unions had their, because we've been asking the unions for a long time to actually come out and say SEIU or UFCW, and they had already refused it. But this time, they did come out with their banners, which it was huge. We even had the president of the AFL-CIO give a speech and to the crowd. So it's been a lot of that type of response. Legal response has been huge too, but the main thing is that on the streets and on the daily fights, that's where sometimes with the exception of the UUs, the Universalists that actually went and got 29 of them arrested, they have been very careful. They come out publicly, but they don't go out to the point where they are willing to put their bodies on the line. I think overall the response for mobilizations have been great, but for the daily, grind of everyday work has been kind of slow. But everybody's opposed to it within 70 from the progressive communities in Arizona, not only in Arizona, nationwide. But we have to take it a little bit farther. It's not enough. The legal battle, is one part. We have to organize the communities, and that's where they don't come out necessarily in that part of the organizing part. But I just wanted to say, in regards to what they said real fast, is that you have Chief Gascon here. Chief Gascon was the most progressive chief in Arizona. He took on Sheriff Joe Arpaio. But the thing is, he still has a lot of the tactics that were in Arizona. And that's one of the tactics that they used in Arizona. They would not allow the day laborers to stand. They had to be moving many times. And if they stood, sometimes they would come and move them and arrest them on the public right away. They can only do it like on private property, even though it's against the law. So he's probably picking up some of those tactics that were picked up over there. And today the liberals, sometimes they end up being like real conservative Republicans. I don't know why. Gascon was good with us over there, but over here he accepted secure communities. When over there he didn't have them. So that's the sign of the times. We gotta fight him. And sometimes I think, if you put pressure on Gascon, I think he might react to pressure, but you got to put him, he wants to look good to the community. And if the Latino, Mexicano community puts pressure on him, he's going to look bad because he always wants to look good.
There's another question there, but there's been a broad coalition ranging from religious groups to community groups to even groups in the hate of neighbors and even businesses. But the issue is that the people in favor are the people with a lot of money. The Chamber of Commerce is putting thousands of dollars on the campaign. So I think more than anything, we know that our strength is people, and people that know that it's ludicrous to make a law that's going to criminalize the act of sitting or lying on a sidewalk. That's not criminal, and that even it is conducive to community. People have lemonade stands on the sidewalk, and that's not bad. And we wouldn't want anybody giving a ticket to a little girl for putting a lemonade stand because she's sitting on the sidewalk.
This documentary came long before SB 1070 came out. This was a documentary idea that I've had for a few years, and teaming up with Mike and the rest of the team with Vivo Media Group, we decided finally now is the time. Things were looming in the immigration battles 2 years ago. And so we knew we had to strike now. And little did we know, a year into research, Arizona would implode. And we were right there, right at the perfect timing. I mean, teaming up with Salvador's organizations in Phoenix, with the Masehuali Day Labor Center and Dona Tierra, we were able to capture a lot of stuff. But it was an idea that we've had, me being Latino from Argentina, from San Francisco, raised in the Bay Area, this was an issue that I've seen for years, something that I knew somebody needed to say, and nobody stepped up. So we decided we needed to step up. Any other questions?
Someone in the front row had a question, I think.
Let me start, and then I'm sure I'm going to miss something. So this is just this much of this piece. I mean, this is why we're here. We need help to finish this project. So in many ways, number one, we've only filmed the Bay Area and Arizona. We're not even done with Arizona. We need to go back to Arizona and finish it. We are also planning on going to New York, Chicago, New Orleans, and then to DC to get political views. But part of this project, it's kind of changed from a documentary about day laborers to a documentary about immigration and civil rights told through the day laborers. And so documenting the community organizations, whether it's a small one street, one block organization to a massive organization or a movement like Alto Arizona, we're capturing it all. From the Comité de Defensa del Barrio. These organizations, these local grassroots organizations are key because the politicians aren't going to do it. We have to do it ourselves. And so that's a giant part of this documentary. This here is what we filmed, and this was a clip that we figured we could put together that could show kind of a broad, viewing of what this documentary is about. But this is nothing compared to what we still need to film, and that's why we're showing this to you.
One of the things that Martine and I have been talking about is that we really dislike films that just point the finger and say, this is what's wrong, this is what's happening, oh my God, what are we going to do? So part of our mission of this film is to really seek out people who are advocating for a solution, people who are actually actively seeking out a way to solve this problem, and that's part of the process that we're going through. Is we certainly don't have the answer, but we are looking to people who do.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Oh well.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So, if anybody is seeking legal advice, I'm not a lawyer, so don't don't write this down. But my family, my parents and I, and my brother came here when I was just 3 years old, right? And through that, when I was 3 years old, we've been trying to legalize, and my parents have been trying to legalize. So that was since 1989. I'm sorry, I was 3. I don't remember. So through that time, we've been trying to legalize. We've been this close, and it wasn't until about 2 years ago that I was able to legalize. And I'm an exception to the rule. Most undocumented immigrants are in waiting lines for at least a decade, at least. They could be a family member of someone that's a resident, or even a family member that's someone that's a citizen, and it takes a long, long time. We were gonna legalize about 10 years ago, and what happened is, through a bad lawyer that ripped us off and got my dad through deportation proceedings, my whole family got basically we were still illegal, still undocumented, and this unfortunately is the story of a lot of family members, is a story of day laborers, even the ones that have family that are documented here. It's extremely long process to legalize, and that's why it's so important to advocate for a fair immigration reform, which is humane and which recognizes the work of all the day laborers and other family members who, like my family, even though my parents were undocumented like a few years ago, were paying taxes since 1989. We're paying taxes. And have been paying taxes regardless of their citizenship status. And when I was 18, even though I was undocumented, and this is true for many, signed up for selective service. And you don't need a social security to sign up for selective service. So if there was a draft, I would be as likely as anybody else, to be taken up in the military.
I just wanted to add something. It seems like if we are still concentrating on civil rights, and we have a saying, and it was coined by Tupac Enrique, and the saying is from Selma to Phoenix, because the civil rights struggle in Selma and what's going on in Phoenix today. But then we have to go from civil rights to human rights, and then go to the rights of Mother Earth. And unless we do not take this fight to the human rights level, to our basic humanity, then we're going to be fighting the city of San Francisco, we're going to be fighting the city of Phoenix, we're going to be fighting the municipality here, municipality there, school district there, school district there. And they'll change the rules on you every time. Every time they will change the rules on you. Unless we can take it to the level that it's supposed to be, and that's the level of all human beings have a right to travel through this Mother Earth. All human beings, regardless of where they were born. I know a medicine man, he's already passed away. His name was Thomas Baniaca. He was the last messenger of the Hopis, and he said, he had a little passport with him. It was made of leather, and it had an eagle feather, and then stamped on with letters stamped on the leather. It said, "This passport is good as long as the rivers keep on flowing, the sun keep on rising, and the wind keeps on flowing." And that's what we have to get into. The notion of nation states is a notion that's going to go the way of the castles. The same way that the castles were destroyed by the Industrial Revolution, now nation states are being destroyed by globalization, economic globalization. The thing is, the corporations are using the nation states as a playgrounds where they pit human beings against human beings, where they utilize and extract the labor, mine the labor of human beings. And that's what we are. They're temporary, disposable labor That's what jornaleros are, temporary disposable labor. And we're accepting it because it's convenient, because we do not have the courage yet to rise up to the level of humanity. I know it's going to be a long fight, and I'll probably die pretty soon in a few years, 10, 20, whatever, 15 years. I'm not going to be able to see it. But if we do not strive for it right now, we're going to end up always going back to the same thing, and that is blaming Sheriff Joe, blaming Jerry Brown, blaming somebody else. But in reality, we have to struggle to change that. And I know it's a little bit philosophical, but that's what guides us in Tonatierra. That's what guides us. That's what keeps us, struggling and fighting. And maybe that's because of our indigenous roots and our indigenous perspective and our indigenous practices. But if we do not learn from our indigenous brothers and sisters, we're going to end up destroying not only ourselves but the planet, which we're already beginning in a terroricide of dimensions we don't even know. I know this is a lot more for them than this film tries to do, but I will encourage them to start looking into the human rights violations at that level, because that's what it is. It's human rights violations what's going on today, and this film depicts it all. Thank you.
Just really quickly, less than 30 seconds. Immigration laws have systematically used to exclude certain people. For example, Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, or during the 1880s, targeted people from, as the name implies, from China, and who were working in California in the mines and others. And that law was in effect for 50 years. For 50 years, Chinese weren't eligible to come to the U.S. So if you ask a Chinese how hard is it to legalize, if you ask them in 1910, 1915, the laws were made so he was purposely excluded. It wasn't until World War II that it became embarrassing to not let Chinese come into our country. But that law, every 10 years, instead of, if it was supposed to be checked every 10 years to see if they wanted to keep it ongoing, and instead of doing away with the law every 10 years, they would add other groups where, like, after 10 years, Japanese were not were included in the law and not let into the U.S. As part of the immigration process.
All right, so we have time for just one more question. Yeah, I mean, like we said before, this is just an iota of what this documentary is going to be. The history is something huge that needs to be explained. Because so with that, I want to just say thank you for coming. Thank you for your support. We look forward to having another screening in the near future. Please leave your, if you can't make a donation, just give us your email, and we'd love to keep you in contact with how we are progressing in this documentary. We hope to be raising the funds to help us finish this project. This project is very important for everyone, and I think it'll help, turn the tide and open the eyes of those who really don't know what's going on. So thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you for everyone who's helped out today for the panel. We have Joel Aguilar from the San Francisco Day Labor Program, Michael Machowski, writer-producer of the documentary, Jose Ramirez, Day Labor of San Francisco, and Salvador